Hello.
So, hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. I'm a bit tired of the lockdown, but everything's okay.
Where are you in the world?
In Mexico
Oh,
City.
okay. Okay, I was trying to
Yeah,
peek out the window and see what I could see.
just plants. Let me begin by asking you. This is obviously a fascinating project. I'm a big fan of the book, of the previous movie. How did it begin for you? How did you decide this is something that I want to do?
To get a little specific, so I knew the book. My father is a pilot. I grew up on airfields.
Wow.
And so I knew of the book. I had seen the movie. And wasn't what actually we were starting to try to do was we were talking about doing a biopic on Chuck Yeager. And we were actually in conversations with Chuck Yeager's, now sadly his widow, but we were talking to her and we were trying to figure out if it could work, and ultimately the deal didn't work out. And through the kind of very early stage research on that project, you go back and you read the right stuff, because obviously Chuck Yeager is such a big part of the book, and like the best part of the movie. I will say he's so good. Like Sam Shepard in the movie is just other world, so good. And so when we went back and read the right stuff, which I hadn't read in a really long time, I was really kind of blown away and taken with the fact that instead of just like one really complicated, interesting kind of anti-hero, you had seven. And it was like, it felt like an embarrassment of riches. And as much as I love the movie and I hold the movie so close to my heart, the truth is the movie, although very long at 3 hours and change, the movie only had 3 hours. And so it could only accomplish so much. And it felt like if in the early 80s when Phil Kaufman decided he wanted to do it, if it was now, it would never have been a movie. It would have been a series,
Yes.
because there's so much to uncover. And so we just felt like we had a moment and an opportunity to really kind of dig into the stories of these guys and just jumped all over it. Tom Wolfe was still alive at the time when we first started this. And so we had this extraordinary opportunity. Well, opportunity it turned into, but we actually had to convince him to let us do it, which was,
Really?
yeah, which was scary. But he's awesome and he was amazing. And he blessed the whole process like wholeheartedly and believed that in a longer form, more of his story, more of the book and more of what he had intended when he wrote the book would get out there.
I am curious though because the book begins in a very different place than the show. Now, granted, I've only been able to see the first three episodes, so I don't know if you go back into Chuck Yeager. But how did
We
you decide
don't.
where to begin? Oh, you
So
don't. Okay.
we stayed away from Chuck Yeager on purpose. like it felt like, obviously Dennis Quaid and all those other actors are so fantastic in the movie, but the Sam Shepard character in the movie is what people remember the most. And it's the most iconic. And we sort of felt like you either tell the story of Chuck Yeager and that's your story, or you tell the story of the space program. And so everything that goes on at Edwards, and we went to Edwards like in the research process of this, and we went to the little bar that they all went to that's in the book, and it's amazing. That's its own story. And so I hope that story gets told. We really felt like we had 8 episodes and we really wanted to focus on these seven guys and their lives and their wives and how they wound up there. And again, I feel like you're almost at this point, you're not casting Chuck Yeager, you're casting Sam Shepard. And who wants that challenge? I can't do that. So it just felt like it felt a little bit safer to stay away from that and allow that really unbelievable performance that Sam Shepard gives to kind of stay untouched. And maybe one day there'll be another season or spin-off or something of the right stuff where we explore Chuck Yeager, but Chuck Yeager deserves his own thing.
What I did like about exactly what you're saying is I think there's a very interesting sort of dialogue between different movies that have nothing to do with each other from a production standpoint, but obviously they're telling the same story, which is the right stuff. But I can also see how it dialogues with First Man, with Apollo 13. I mean, there's Jim Love. All these people have been cast, as you say, by Sam Shepard, or in the case of Tom Hanks or Ryan Gosling recently. How do you think the right stuff, your version, will fit into that conversation? And were you thinking of these other properties in terms of how they all speak to each other?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we definitely, those are amazing movies and they happen to be about space travel, right? Like, that's the way you look at them. Like, I could watch Apollo 13 100 times in a row and like never get sick of it and always be nervous when, when they're coming back down. Like, are they going to make reentry? And we looked at them as inspiration, as from a technical standpoint. I mean, the technical work in First Man is just next level. And those movies and the original right stuff, they set the bar for how we talk about those types of American heroes. And I use that word very carefully, but what we view as American heroes, and how and our relationship with space travel, they really have defined that in our sort of in our film and television culture. And so we would have been remiss if we had just completely forgotten that those existed, and we very much like looked at them and talked about them and were inspired by them, but yet tried to tell a different story than they tell. And I think that we're pretty successful. It's funny when you get to episode 8, um, and we only cover in the first season, we only cover up until I'm kind of giving something away, but not really. We only cover till the first flight. That's it. We just
Okay.
go to the first flight. And I was really nervous when we started working on it in visual effects and even shooting it. I was like, oh my God, like, how are we ever going to make this feel dynamic and different and interesting and keep the audience engaged? And I tell you, like, I could watch that launch of Alan Shepard in episode 8 like a million times and get tears in my eyes every single time. And the only reason we knew where to go and how to do that was because of those movies that came before us, and how well crafted and well told they are. So they are, I hope we fit in nicely. We definitely worked hard to not tread on any, step on any toes, and to just allow them to kind of lift us up.
You can totally tell. I think it's just another piece of that intricate, wonderful puzzle that is the space program. I think we're out of time. I just want to thank you so much for this interview. It was really good, and best of luck with the show. What I saw was amazing, and thank you.
Keep watching, keep watching. It gets better and better. 4 is my
Oh.
favorite episode, but 8 is awesome too.